So, as you may recall, a few months ago, I picked up the world's grossest dollhouse on the side of the road on my way to work, and I've been working to fix it up ever since. All in all, I spent about 20 hours scraping wallpaper, pulling up carpets, really scrubbing all of the really old glue off, and just doing not really demo work, I guess you might call it that, but I didn't gut the inside or anything. I needed to get it to the point where I could paint it and install fresh new wallpaper and actually have it stick and do all new floors. I don't even know how many times I emptied out that water. I'd make my TSP water solution, scrub, 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 and it would come out brown so many times. I ended up using white primer to paint most of the inside and then also the outside. And then I got some terracotta spray paint and redid the roof. I decided to keep the original colors, although I went a little bit more white rather than off-white on the outside because I realized this is kind of a Spanish Hacienda kind of a look, or like a Spanish revival kind of a look. And the whole house reminds me of something you might see from the 1920s or 30s here where I live in Southern California. You can see what a difference this white primer made. It just looks so much fresher and more clean. And I am starting to have hope that this house will turn out pretty well. And I realized on the shutters there's still some mold I need to clean up before I can paint that part. So I'll just do the parts that I've already prepped. Ah, that first spray feeling. Okay, so let's discuss my inspiration and my overall plan for this dollhouse. I have been collecting vintage Strombecker dollhouse furniture for years, and I don't have a home for it. The first thing I thought when I saw this house on the side of the road is, wouldn't this Strombecker look great in this house? So if you look at the Strombecker furniture, it has a lot of soft curves in the corners and arches, and then the straight turned legs on, say, the dining room table and the bathroom vanity. It just reminded me of the turning on the balcony of the house and on the pillars that support either side of the balcony. So the first thing I did was set the furniture in the house to see if I needed to add anything. I realized I did not have a kitchen sink, but I was able to find one on eBay, so I went ahead and ordered that. So now it was time to think about the color scheme. A main color in the living room would have to be red to match all my furniture. Here's a picture of this Strombecker set in a book by Dan Zillner. Plot twist. So I was on eBay and I found this purple Art Deco set, also by Strombecker. And the interesting thing is that the eBay listing said it was from the collection of Dion Zillner, and that a lot of that actual collection for sale on eBay was featured in her book. So obviously I did what any dollhouse addict would do, and I purchased the purple set even though I didn't really need it. I decided I had to use both the red and the purple sets, so I began a deep dive into colorful maximalist design to see how I could make this red and purple work together. One thing I noticed is that the Hollywood Regency style often combines red and purple, as seen here in this Dorothy Draper wallpaper. So I will be taking my design inspiration from Hollywood Regency, Art Deco, Hacienda or bungalow style, and above all, maximalism. For the living room, I chose this chinoiserie wallpaper, which had red and purple accents. When wallpapering, I often start in a rear corner of the room. Then when I make a slight overlap, you don't see the side of the paper. I wanted the entryway to have a checkerboard pattern and contrasting woods. The width of the entryway will be 7 3/4 inches. I designed the tiles specifically so that 3 of them would stretch exactly across, and this would save me a lot of work. Then I just went into light burn and designed the tiles to the exact measurements that I wanted. I used furniture touch-up pens to stain the wood, and then I laid them in an alternating pattern. I glued them down with Aleene's tacky glue. In retrospect, maybe I should have used wood glue. The little corners liked to come up after a while, so I used some blue painter's tape to hold them down while they dried completely. I wanted the outside of the house to have a neat and uniform look when it came to the curtains, so instead of using fabric, I decided to cut some wood curtains. I know that sounds weird, but make some wood curtains on my wood cutter and then use Mod Podge to glue scrapbook paper to the curtains. This way, the curtains all look the same from the outside, but I can decorate the inside of the curtains different to match each room. I glued thin satin ribbon around all of the edges of the curtains for a uniform look and to hide the wood burning marks. This house does not have a front door, so I designed a faux front door on my wood cutter, and it's basically a mashup of Hollywood Regency style and Art Deco. In the main body of the door, I used a furniture repair marker, and then for the trim, I just spray painted it dark brown. I glued some scrapbook paper on the back so I would have a base to glue everything else to. And then I just built up the door in layers. Later, I added a gold Houseworks doorknob. When the door had dried completely, I then glued it to the interior of the living room. I spray painted all of my baseboards for this room a dark brown to match the trim on the door. I decided it would be fun to add a leopard print wall-to-wall carpet in the main part of the living room. This seam of carpet where it meets the checkerboard floor is really important. I glued it down very carefully so that there would not be a gap. Baseboards will cover up the edges of the carpet on the other sides, so I don't have to worry so much about unseemly gaps. Here's a reminder of what this room looked like before. Okay, so here is the living room. It still needs some finishing above the window. It needs art on the walls. It obviously needs a staircase. But you can see the foyer floor is done, the front door is done, the trim is up, the baseboards on the left are done. I need some in the back still. I chose a terracotta brick pattern for the dining room and kitchen. Okay, so I trimmed the edge of this. And what that does is that when you press it down, you really can't see the seam. This lait chinoiserie paper seemed like it would be a good fit for the terracotta colored brick floor in the dining room. And it kind of fit with the Hacienda style, so that's why I went with that. Once again, I started my wallpapering in the back corner. Brushing wallpaper glue on is probably my very least favorite part of this entire process because it's so important to completely cover the paper or you will get air bubbles. If you've discovered your glue is dried out, it helps to add a few drops of warm water to the glue and then mix it with something kind of hard like a glue scraper or something, and that should revitalize your glue. For the kitchen, I sought out inspiration photos with Spanish-style tiles on the walls. At first, I thought I would only tile partway up the walls. Here's a shot of some beams. I kind of want to put beams on the ceiling in the kitchen as well. Anyway, I selected this tile wallpaper and I realized I had enough of it to completely cover the kitchen walls. Once again, I'm making sure to cover that back corner first. I've already cut the window out. At the end, I realized I only had just barely enough wallpaper to finish the project. I have the tiniest bit of scrap left over. It's actually really funny. So there's still work to be done in this kitchen. It obviously needs accessories, some curtains in the window, some sort of trim around the window, and probably trim along the edges of the floor. In my next video, I'll finish accessorizing the first floor. Then I will begin working on the second floor. I feel like I'm forgetting something, though. Timothy!
You forgot to construct the staircase. It will be difficult for me to design the second floor without it.
Oh.